And so let's get started. Good to see everybody. I think we're having enchiladas and prepping for Passover, Marcus says. Well, Vanell was talking, Marcus, you'll like this, that she got the nice little easy tacos at Costco.
Yeah, yeah. Everything that you need is there. All
Mhm.
you have to do is heat up the chicken, take out your tacos, fill it with stuff, deliciousness,
Delicious.
and that's it. It's done. Done.
And you deserve to sleep in. Let's start there with No Kings. And I think as organizers have been doing this now for years, and then to see where we are in this moment, the No Kings 3, the Defiance thing. I still have my buttons on, got my Women's March t-shirt on because it's been that long that we've been showing up, and obviously why you slept until noon today. So tell me how it went in the Eastern Shore. What was the vibe for the No Kings? How are you feeling about it?
I feel really good. We were hoping for 1,000 people, which is,
Right.
it's aiming high. Uh, but the weather shifted on us, and it was 40 degrees, and the wind was blowing. If
Yes.
we didn't have the tents down with all kinds of heavy weights, they would have just blown away. And it reminds me, someone said, "We're cold, we're old, but we're bold." And so we ended up with probably somewhere over 300 people in Machapongo, but they also had like 110 people in Chincoteague. So it was one from 11 to 2, and then another one started from 3 to 5 in Chincoteague. So the two of them together, probably around 400, 450 people. And on our little Eastern Shore, I
Right.
cannot tell you how happy that makes us.
No, that's cool. I mean, when you saw one thing about the whole marches across and, how we were feeling, I will say that, when I was listening to Timothy Snyder, he went to Cincinnati. That's actually his hometown. And people in the room I don't know if people subscribe to him, but I definitely do. His On Tyranny book and On Freedom book is like much reading for the time.
Hmm.
But he really did talk about making sure that this particular act of defiance or the protest was everywhere, and every little town actually mattered. I mean, the news likes to show all the big towns, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But he was like, I'm showing up in Cincinnati because that's where we really are seeing the movement. And then this is where movements need to grow. They have to have that kind of, we were wondering about that. So how did you feel about what you were seeing, not only in your town, but what you heard across even Virginia or the nation?
Well, the what I loved about it, and I posted about this a lot, is that for the Indivisible organization,
Right.
everybody mattered. It didn't matter how big or small you were. If you sent in your information, you were on the map. And what that does is everybody feels included. I
Right.
mean, we're trying to get to this number of 3.5%, but it takes every little town and every little nook and corner to make that happen. So, as I say, we are part of the margins to make that happen. So I felt good about us, but I felt good about everything. When you turned on the news, you saw the entire TV, and it was just screens of all these places that were having march. Every single state had marches, and even outside of the country. So it was pretty amazing.
Well, I want to stick on old No Kings for a bit here and then switch over to some other stuff. Like, one thing that's been always bothers me sometimes is how the media does cover it in some ways. And then they have this weird expectation, like it's always like, what's next? Like as it isn't enough at how long, if people that are on the outside really understand what organization looks like, mass mobilization really looks like, and actually that we're able to do it, I think really shows a lot about the strength of our movement. I would say in Virginia, being here 10 years, the amount of relationship building, the amount of how we communicate and we're able to mobilize is really super important, right? So, in that sense, when we look at like where do we go from here, it almost kind of annoys me. I was watching the Bulwark, and the lady's like, "Well, you can protest, but what's going to happen next?" And you're just like, "Okay." Like I think one thing is that we have to really do need to sustain the action in between. And I think getting these new people involved is then, trying to figure out how to get them involved locally or make people sort of really get engaged. So what are your thoughts when you think about, okay, you slept in today, you're feeling
Mhm.
good, you missed some,
Actually, yes, actually, I feel guilty because I kept
you
thinking,
do.
I need to go canvassing. I need to go canvassing
I
today, but my
know.
family tries to hold me back, but it's okay. I got it.
So what are your
Because,
thoughts yeah, yeah, I
yeah,
know.
so I got it. But here's what I feel about that. as someone said, "Oh, it's only old people." Well, old people vote. I mean, just going to say for the record, but
Only
but all
we saw new people this time, not just old
yes,
people.
yes, I saw new people this time, which was really amazing. So even if our crowd wasn't as big as the last one, we had new people who showed up.
Right.
Part of this is really just the visibility. If someone didn't make it out this time, they see it on the news, they hear people talk about it, they hear people post about it, they see people in their family who didn't go, but someone else is telling them about it. It is all building the momentum. And you also a fantastic opportunity for Virginia, of course, to talk about the Yes campaign, which is, of course, what we did. Lots of signs out there for yes.
Well, with some people in the room about thinking about yes. So I have to say that on the No Kings, I went downtown and people appreciate this. In the grassroots, we've been working on the Yes campaign, and obviously everybody's hair should be on fire about it because right now we do see, I think a court just allowed Trump to take another state to allow this, continuing stealing of seats and redistricting. So Virginia's responding, and we have this thing that we're calling the Yes campaign. And I mean, I don't feel like people's hair is on fire enough. And this is what I think a lot of us are worried about. So we thought in Virginia, the No Kings should all equal vote yes. And so when I got in the car with my honey badger husband, who was so much fun that he can go with me, and it was really like date day. No Kings 3 was all about, we got to spend some time together. We had talked about this, how nice it is when your partner is supportive. Again, it makes a difference. Dinner's always late, whatever. But we went down there, we got to the march, we got out of the Arlington Cemetery Metro, and he followed me, and I got right to the front with
Mhm.
my fight back, vote yes sign. And I led the protest all the way across the mall. And I'm like in the front with all the bobbleheads, and I'm like, fight back, vote yes. I am going for it because I'm going to say that, folks, this is really important. And I am a little bit worried that people need to get more engaged with what is going on. And especially when I talk to you, I was listening to Roland Martin and Dr. Reverend Barber talk about really voter mobilization before this election is going to be key. But we need to deliver this state, and we need to get people like that, like crazy, that this is the most important thing ever in their life right now. I don't know what more to say. It's just, I just feel like, what the heck do we need to do?
So let me tell you what I think.
What?
Um,
Yeah,
so my hair is on fire.
I know.
Yeah, so I want to tell you. So I did get the opportunity to speak at our No Kings rally. They gave
Huh?
me the stage for 10 whole minutes to get to talk about
Holy
stuff.
crap. That's amazing.
I know. And I talked about the moment, but I also talked about the Yes campaign and why it's so important. And I think if we keep on saying what fascism is, I
Right.
said to people, just tell me what you think democracy is, whatever you think it is, your moment to do whatever it is you're doing right now, whatever dancing or singing or preaching or loving or whatever it is, all of that is democracy. Whatever that's it. And if that is at risk,
Right.
how would you feel about that? And our state, if we believe this, is responsible for delivering seats so that we can restrain this president and this administration. If you feel like those things are important to you, what else would you be doing? And so I feel a little bit like, oh my God, and this is what I said. We delivered 64 seats in our House, 64 seats, and we have an advantage in the Senate. So these Republicans are doing everything. They're sending false messages. They are appropriating our Black history. They're doing all of that. They are making it so you can't tell whether President Obama and our governor, they're putting words in their mouth. And the only people that folks really believe are the people who are closest to the ground. And that is us and the folks that they voted into our House. Those are the faces that they want to see to say, this is why this is so important. And this is how you should be voting. It is, yes, you heard it from my lips to yours, to your ears. This is
Yes.
what we should do. And that's what I want to feel. And I'm not sure that I'm feeling that to the degree of anxiety that's inside of me that folks should understand this. Yes, we have to fight back really hard. And that's how I feel.
I know. Yes, I'm logging that in because today, speaking of Passover, Marcus Simon's preparing. We know that as we're heading into, we just left Ramadan. Now we're going to Passover. Easter is coming. And I feel like that same thing. I was in church today, kind of thinking about it. Uh, just going in and knocking over some tables in the temple and saying shit and getting things going. I do think it's just like a time where we can't take a break. Like it is, we talk about this like, okay, let's take a rest. But at the same time, I mean, some of the delegates, somebody was telling me, I don't know if it was you or saying, well, they needed a break from this and that, and then they'll get to this. We can't really just sort of take our foot off the pedal, right? We have to keep going. But now and today, so everybody was so upset about these flyers that they're getting sent to their house that are falsely saying Obama said no, Spamberger said no, and I keep telling people, look, you have to really get into the fight. And if you start to feel like you're so defeated, that's not the place to be. You really have to like get in there and and just not be shy to talk to all your freaking neighbors about this. This is how important to it. And I'll just be straight up. I have a disappointment again in like our Democratic Party somewhat that they're not on this on social media, that we have fought so hard to get our signs out and message on for months. And you feel sort of like, okay, folks, like let's work together and let's feel passionately and work together. And it's still, it gets tiresome about that.
Well,
But
I think though, I think folks like sometimes it takes a minute. Like I remember the whole referendum in
oh my
Virginia Beach, and what happened. I was seeing signs all over the place, and I was thinking, oh my God, they're
God,
so far ahead of us. But timing is everything, and sometimes when you come out, it's sort of people are in the moment, so they're ready. The only thing that worries is we focus so much on early vote. And maybe that's what they're thinking, that we
right,
focus on early vote. So if they get their message out quickly into people's hands and say vote early, that it distracts them. I think we just keep on fighting and pushing through.
right,
And I used to tell my teams when I worked in corporate America, I said, my managers, I would say, listen, your hair can be on fire, but you just can't let your folks know that your hair is on fire so that you can push and keep them inspired and motivated and keep them doing what they need to do. That's us in the grassroots. Our hair is on fire, but when we're talking to our friends and neighbors, but I will say this though, I do feel like, what is at risk when you are watching the news and you see what they're doing? Like, for example, the 2 Black officers who were up for promotion, 2 women.
yes,
When I see that as a Black woman, it just creates fear in my heart because I know that we are not thought highly of and that they really don't care about me anyway. And so
right,
what I'm feeling is, "Oh my goodness, Black people everywhere e all of us should recognize, like they always say, if, someone gets the flu, Black people, we get, like, pneumonia, and so that's how hard it is for people of color and Black people to understand that this moment requires something different in terms of our engagement, and so that's my concern is
right.
ensuring that everyone is engaged at the same level because it does require all of us, no matter who you are.
Well, I wondered too, and I like to focus on this one when we will end with really some stuff about what we think maybe we can do next. And I love that in the sense of getting people together. And I do think, like after the Women's March, we did our huddles and got together. I noticed Indivisible really said, after this, make sure you call people together and get together. And I want to say that maybe we'll just start with this with the soup. You had a thing that you've been doing with the soup and a story. And I think people may be really interested in that you hosted this and you did the hot takes and hot dogs. And I think really, folks, if you're out there and you're an organizer, you're thinking about how do I get people together? Fennell is awesome at these thoughts of how she gets community together. Talk about your soup and stories and what started that kind of idea.
I worked with Bill Payne. We're on our local Democratic committee, and we were having our protest, and
Right,
very few Black people were showing up. And Bill was just all the pieces about it, and so he wanted
right.
us to come up with a way to engage. Go where people are. That's what we always say. You
Yes,
have to go where people are. And so we started to find. We did 3 of them last summer, and we'll do more this year. But what we did was we would find people in the community who had credibility and we would do everything that they needed once they agreed. We'd make the flyers for them to give to their neighbors, and it was called Hot Dogs and Hot Takes. And so we'd come and we'd send out the flyers. It's free. Come and get some hot dogs, some chips, some drink. Meet your neighbors. And then I had these bags that I'd make up from the dollar store because people love gifts and raffles. And then we had a $25 gift certificate. gift cards. And if you did a hot take, which was just speaking up about something that you cared about, and we didn't tell them, it didn't have to be politics, could be whatever.
Right.
And so you'd have to give a hot take if you wanted to go in the drawing for the $25. And after a while, people weren't even caring about the drawing. They just wanted to ask questions about stuff. They just wanted to questions about SNAP, about whatever the thing was. So we did 3 of them. And we even saw people who were there come and vote when we had voting. So
Wow.
it was really amazing. So it starts small, we keep at it. Well, wintertime came, we're having this election. So I said, we should do soup and a story. Invite women to your home and I sent the flyers out, come and join me for some interesting conversation on what's happening and what you think about it and share a story. And so I even had someone call me up and said, well, I really want to come, but I don't have a story. And I was like, well, it could be any story. You could talk about whatever you want. And so I was really worried. My sister helped me make all the soup. We made 3 different soups. We made a wonderful potato soup and a wonderful corn and crab chowder and a pasta fagioli,
My
which my
God.
husband made me make myself. But anyway, that's another story. But anyway, so we had these wonderful soups, but then I was worried because people were calling saying, I can't come. I can't. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to
I
have this
hate
soup
that
and no
feeling.
one's going to show up. So I was really, really worried. 16 women showed up.
Wow. That's
It
great.
was it was so exciting, and it was from every we had a doctor, we had and they all shared stories, and let me just say this, there was, 2 women who had not seen each other for 50 years. They just were in different places, and they just happened to be invited by someone who brought them along. They were sitting there, and they go, "Oh my god, I thought something was wrong," but they were
Did
so
you say
excited to see each
50?
other. 50 years they hadn't seen each other since they were little girls. How about
Oh
that?
my God. That's amazing.
And then this is the last story that I'll tell you, which was really amazing. So, as they were telling stories, one woman came up to tell her story. And her story was this: she worked at this company where they made tile. One day she wasn't feeling well. They took her to the hospital and she had a massive stroke. She
Oh my
did
God.
not see her home for a year. And she said one of the things that saved her, she had no money coming in. And her friend said to her, "Didn't you get the insurance that I told you about?" And so she was talking to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Do you have insurance?" And she said, "Yes, I do," because now she's had this conversation. And he said, "Do you have good insurance?" And she said, "Yes, I do." And he said, "I'm going to make sure that you get the best care possible." Well, she ends up getting great, great therapy. And she's walking and she's almost back to her full self. Not quite. But
Right?
what she said was, she said, "I didn't know anything about insurance until someone told me about it. But that insurance is what saved my life because I had no money coming in, and that was the only money that I had coming in." For everyone to hear that story and to understand how important it is to talk to people in this moment as affordable care is at risk, as health insurance is going
Right.
up. Everybody thought different. Those are the kind of moments that we want people to share and talk about. They all got emails to keep in touch. I have all their emails. I got some canvassers, yay. And so this is what we have to do to start to build community. So I was very excited. I was very worried that I wouldn't have people.
Oh,
And I had 16 wonderful women who shared fantastic stories, resources, and I got some canvassers. So it was all worth the effort. And that's why I was so tired.
I love it, and the soup, that's such a great idea, and I think when we were talking about, like, coming off of all No Kings, and I have to say that in Virginia, seeing all throughout all the bridges covered and everybody out there. And for me, when I was downtown too, and I'm sure in a lot of places, there was a lot of this focusing on the war. Very felt like, and here we are with this illegal war, so much going on when we know men are going to be sent over there. And it just seems like, again, I was listening to Wes Moore talk about this, not prepared, no plan. Um, just incredible amount of crazy that again, when we talk about what we can do to stop this in Virginia, we don't have to get into too much of this sort of like we're powerless. We just had, yes, a march, but how are we going to take that energy in Virginia and make sure it's happening at the polls? And I'm wondering too, when we talked to Jennifer McCullen, she was on the show on Friday, which was awesome, talking
Hmm.
about the power that you talk about women of color, but women in general too. We've been here before. It's in our genes, as I like to say, our infrastructure, our muscle that we sort of understand the moment. But we have, and I love that she said that we have we have power in this moment, and I think it's going to call on that kind of definitely muscle memory that we're gonna need because if once I feel like he is gonna escalate this more and, this is really concerning, right? But in Virginia, we definitely can again call on all these issues to get people activated. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, because one thing what we saw with some of the areas in Virginia are Republican areas that are voting really strongly, and areas like Jennifer McClellan or, and Bobby Scott and some in Nova are not that driving the vote. Not that many voters are that interested, and we know that Black voters are being targeted. What are your thoughts about this when you see this happening, and then maybe some things like what you're doing on a smaller level, local level, but why do you think this is happening?
Well, I think that so we were just having this conversation about meeting folks where they are.
Right.
And I think that happens in lots of different ways. When I was talking to the women yesterday, I asked them, I said, when you get a phone call and you don't recognize the number, how many of you answer the phone? And so out of the 16, 3 raised their hand because they were like, I'm curious. I just want to know who it is. And then I
Mhm.
said, okay. So I said, so tell me, so when you guys have a stranger knock at the door, how many of you open the door? And, maybe 3 or 4 of them raised their hand. Most of them were like, "Yeah, no, I'm not opening the door. It's too scary today, blah, blah, blah." And
Exactly.
so I said, "Well, when you get a text message, how many of you read your text?" They all raise their hand. They all do their text messages. Yeah, they all read their text messages.
Right.
And so I think the point is that one thing doesn't matter. It is all things.
Kind of
And
thing.
so I don't think you can just rely on, knocking doors and say, "If I knock all these doors, that's gonna matter." Yeah, it matters. You get some points there, okay? You're trying to get to 100, right? And if you text message, you're gonna get some more. If you phone bank, you're gonna get some more. So I think people have to pick the things that they're passionate about and do those things. You know that I do the little nuggets, the little square nuggets.
Yeah,
I hand those
yeah,
things out everywhere. I
right.
hand it out everywhere. And yeah, I was in the grocery store and I handed one to a gentleman. And he says, "Thank you, young lady." He called me young lady. I'm just saying. He said, "Thank you, young lady, but I already voted." And I said, "Well, that's really fantastic. Thank you so much. Will you give that to someone else you know?" And so it's just we just have to talk about it everywhere. Today, right now, in this moment, there's probably not a place that you don't go that there's someone that you can't offer a hint. We were walking today. Our neighbor stopped us and he said hello, and he said, "I'm going out of town next week." He said, "Where can I go to vote early?" I
Oh,
said I said, you head to Eastville." And he said, "To vote yes." And I said, "Absolutely, to vote yes." He wanted to make sure he told me that it was to vote yes.
yeah.
And so that's what I know. I said, "If you see a neighbor and in this moment they just talk about the weather, well, you know how they're voting." I'm just saying.
Uh-oh, yeah.
They just talk about the weather in these moments, something's not right. But when they're talking to you and they wanna engage, help them along, make sure they're getting the yes, make sure they're getting to the polls.
Well, I'm gonna go back to Reverend Barber again,
Yeah.
because I love this idea because he's thinking big for the midterms, and I think in Virginia, one thing we need to do is about registering votings. Let's just pretend about the SAVE Act. We don't know what the heck's going back and forth with this, but let's just say that one thing we understand that you talk about that 3.5% a lot. They were kind of talking about this kind of mobilization we need, and they wanted Reverend Barber was talking about we need 1,000 alphas. He wanted 1,000 alpha men. And he's like, that's all it will take to go out there, join me, be an alpha, sign up, and get just that motivated to go out to talk and register voters. He says, not just register voters. It was even beyond that. It was really talking about that, and I think it has to be talked about, that the bullseye is on Black people in this country, their rights to infrastructure, the future. Roland Martin, I would love to be able to talk to him because he's out here in Virginia, and Cosm's on this. I'd like to get on his show to talk about the Yes campaign. We need help. But the bullseye's on the back of Black people. Letitia James was talking about it today. I'm not, she was talking about what's at stake. Black women have been impacted by this with job losses. The DEI, that what you said, the military, how they were not letting these women be promoted because they are targeting Black people in the
Yeah.
military and in power. And so we can just make sure that this is very important. And because in areas where Black people are, what he was saying is that if we would vote and increase it just this much, and then white folks and other coalitions would join, they could not stop us. We would be unstoppable.
So
I do that. The simple thing is just saying they didn't vote.
So listen at this. So I love Steve Phillips, and he tells us this. He tells us in
Yes.
every campaign. He does the math, democracy in color, and what
Yes.
he says: if Black people voted at the same level, just the same level as white people with our coalition, to your point, we could. There is no reason why we would not win. Now, I want to say something controversial to some
Go ahead.
people, but I'm going to say it anyway because I
Hey.
can. And so I had a post today that came in. A really well-respected gentleman who posted that, it was a rally that was happening, and he was not going to say anything bad about it. He wasn't gonna say any good. He was just not going to attend. It was people's prerogative to go because he was gonna stand in his truth and stand in justice because of all the injustices, blah, blah, blah. It was beautifully written. But what I believe is this:
Mhm.
it requires a coalition, and it requires people to stand up. And so if all of us, if Jesse Jackson, if Martin Luther King, if Mandela, if Mary McLeod Bethune, if Fannie Hamer, if any of these folks that we're thinking about stayed and just stood in justice, where would we be? So the point is that
Right.
you have to fight, and you have to be visible to fight, and you have to show people where you stand. And so I know that there are lots of people who say, well, you know what? We did our part. 94% of us voted for
Yes.
Harris, and we vote Democrat. I'm
Yeah.
just going to say 94% of Black women
Yes.
voted for Governor Spanberger, 54% of white women. So I get it. I get it. And so are we tired? Yes, we're tired. We're all tired. But am I too tired to miss this fight that is going to probably be the worst things that have happened to us before the civil rights, before Jim Crow? No, I'm not willing to. So if this requires me and other Black folks to fight one more time, then we got to fight one more time.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, I mean, because that's what I wanna point I don't wanna get the impression that, we don't understand that the issue is, Black women and people have been voting on the right side of progress forever. And in fact, when we saw some pundit was talking about the Tallarico race and Jasmine Crockett about referring to like, oh, that most of these some folks are just talking about religious folks and totally like not addressing that. Yes, Black Americans are very much in church, but it was just
Absolutely.
like, this didn't happen, you're like, "Okay." But I think we have to look at the totality of what's happening in communities that we do, picking up that man on realizing that to protect it is a big deal in the sense now no one could really stay home, meaning that, yes, I agree, I know that after Harris lost, there was a lot of hurt, a lot of white people
No, we were pissed. We were
we
just
every
pissed.
reason, so was I, like, I'm like, "Oh my god, this is, like, finally seeing the problem." And there was also a interesting report, not that I wanna go in that direction tonight, we don't have a lot of time, but in the sense of our party sticking to the values we need to fight for, we will see them trying to chase Republican voters rather than our core, rather than talk about Gaza like they should. They didn't, and we paid the price for that, the authentic honesty that we need to talk about that why we're in trouble now with ICE is a lot of the kind of equipment, the kind of techniques of just this war machine, these people making money off of it. And then on the idea of oil, like my husband said the other day to me, he goes, we don't go to war about windmills. And I was like, yeah, you're right. It's like, it's always the war of oil, but we don't go to war about windmills that people are like invading each other over damn windmills and solar panels for crying out loud, you know?
So here's what I
Right.
would say as we're thinking about ending. This is what I would say. It
Yes.
is all about with this huge tent that we have, and
Yes.
everybody doesn't accept messaging in the same way. And so it is true. You can talk about like someone will say, "Well, we need to tell people what's in the future." We can do that. We can
Right.
tell you what's in the future, and as I always say, we must tell people where the monsters are. There is so much things that we can talk to people about that would resonate with people of color, that would resonate with Black people, that would resonate with women with children, the message isn't the same. There is an overarching message, but there is going to be something that is appealing to me that catches me. We have all kinds of ways to do that. And I just believe in the grassroots, we can do a whole lot, but we don't have a lot of money. But what we should
Right.
not do is allow Republicans to use all this time to brand us and our candidates. We should be wherever we are. We should be on digital. We listen. Sam has bought um, bras that I do not need. and he
Uh-oh.
has bought,
Wait,
fry
Sam, your husband, I hope?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you listen to this. So he thinks that I could do better. So fine. He's a good guy. I
Yeah,
could do better. So what he says is when he's playing his video games, they feed him all of these ads.
yeah.
Well, I just want to tell you that yesterday I had this really nice frying pan come. And so this morning, yeah, because he ordered that too. So I'm just saying, you go where people are. If they're on digital games, you go to digital games. If they're at the gas pump, you go to the gas pump. If they're on YouTube, you go to
Go to
YouTube,
YouTube.
Hulu, wherever it is, go. Go with some interesting ads, make them fun, but help people understand what is happening in this country in their way. That is our problem. Fox News and every other TikTok and Facebook and
Yeah,
Twitter tell their people what's happening. We don't tell our people. They
yeah.
need to know so they can be as inspired and fired up and angry as they need to be based on who they are. That's all.
I am with you on that. I would say double, triple clicks on the bra and frying pans tonight, folks. Let's see. I agree with that totally, that well, that's
I can do
funny.
better.
I have that's too funny. I want to think about it as I'm cooking tonight. What could come in the mail next? You never know what you'll be
I
having.
don't know. I don't know what's coming in the mail. I don't know.
Well, one thing that I think that we will just definitely for people in the room. First of all, thanks for joining us. It was great to spend the Sunday evenings. Vanessa and I really look forward to sitting down together. And just kind of get to talk what's on our mind. I know I still have a lot on my mind, but I know we have to wrap up, especially about No Kings. And when we talk about for us, what's next? One, we love the Friday Power Lunch. I am going to say to my friend Cosm, if you still listen, I'd love to have you on. It's been too long. And we're on break this Friday to take a little spring break, but we'll be back Friday, April 10th and continue. And we also have the Women's Summit. If you're interested, August 21st through 23rd, we're going to be having a big Women's Summit in Virginia because the midterms is so important. And yeah, and this vote yes thing is driving me crazy. We only have so many weeks to get the word out for people to vote yes. And so,
Oh, yes.
oh yes, oh
So
yes,
call somebody. If you know someone in Virginia and you're somewhere else, call
yeah,
them and say, listen, don't no matter what you hear, as Galen Knoyton says, don't guess,
vote
vote
yes.
yes.
All right. And I did see a good article by Don Scott, our leader, and Senator Lucas talk about voting yes and why they're doing it, and with the Fight Back Our sign that we created. So that was really cool. So everybody tell somebody. And I said, don't be we can't get on the Debbie Downer lot about this. We know that this is an uphill fight and it'll take every single one of us. So we're going to do it. We have to deliver Virginia so we can beat this awful stuff. We have a chance. So there it goes. So have a good night, everybody. We'll
Thank
see you
you guys.
Sunday for sure. Well, next Sunday, maybe we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming. Good to
Bye,
see
everybody.
you. Bye, Belle. See you later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Rodney. Bye, Kelly. See y'all.
Bye.
Bye.